Okay, this will be part three of the mini series for builds and how to make them, how to optimize them in Stranger Paradise. Um, Today we're going to focus on the Smithy, and we're going to focus on all these different options here that we have. I'm going to try to make this one as quick as I'm able to make it, but as detailed as well. But that being said, I don't think that the this video will be as long as the other ones because the affinities and the subclasses for jobs definitely did take a while because there's a lot of jobs and there's a lot of subclasses. So we'll just get straight into it. So the smithy is very important, especially when you're trying to make a build, because this is how you're going to fine tune it, so to speak. As well as well, we'll just get into it. Let's see. So upgrade for special effects. This is, so let's see, let's assume that we want to do this, right? So what we're going to do is, for upgrading it, it just, does what it says, it upgrades it. And you'll need specific things for it, and you can only go up to a certain part. But before you do this, you're going to want to do this. You're going to want to change the special effects, right? So let's assume that I'm using these twin blades, for instance, right? And let's assume that I don't want any of this. Okay? The orange ones will stay the same, but the yellow ones have to be changed. So, this purple diamond and this blue diamond refer to Ultima and Evocation Affinity, respectively. The only way that these are activated is if you have enough percentage in their respective affinities to activate them. If these are on equipment and you don't have the affinity, they do not activate, which means that you don't get to use them. You don't get the passive buff that this would give you otherwise. So it's hard to really tell you how to use these two effectively. All I can really say is that if you have items that give you this affinity, then you're going to want to try to make use of it. But at the same time, and it seems like these can definitely be a lot stronger than some of the other ones. Let's see. Let's try to go to upgrade, and then let's do this one. So as you can see, like it goes up like quite a bit, right? The MP cost for reinforce, because this is a 4, whatever the percentage for that is, you have to have that percentage, and then you have to upgrade it to the maximum. As you can see, it takes orange materials, but MP cost for reinforce it takes 51.4% less MP to use that, which can be really good. So if you find something with that on there and you want to keep it on there, that's fine. But you should only keep these on here if one, you have the affinity required to activate it and to keep it active, and two, if it's actually going to be a skill or an ability or something that you're going to use that works for your build. Otherwise, it's just taking up space. So anyway, first thing we're going to want to do is you're going to want to figure out what weapon you're using, right? So for me, generally, I use axes, right? And let's see if I can't find one. Here we go. So this is one that I made myself. As you can see, it's a level 500 axe. It enables Fatal Crush, Furious Blow, and Quick Pivot. Those are there by default. So I just get those by default, and I can set those to specific ability slots after X amount of R1 swings, right? But these white ones here are ones that I put on there, okay? So axes do strike damage, so it makes more sense for me to put strike damage dealt, strike break damage dealt, and soul shield MP recovery. You want the MP recovery because you want to use the ability, in this case for me, it would be adrenaline, because I use it with the berserker job. You want to have enough MP to where not only can you continue to use abilities, but when you use adrenaline, that it's not drained significantly, right? Your soul shield will be able to help you keep this meter up while you're fighting. And then, you know, you just build them up from that. But if you don't want these, then you go here and you choose one, right? And there are a bunch. I mean, we can just go down this list here really quick, and you can see there is a skill for or an active buff for basically everything in this game. Basically for anything you would ever need, it's here. You need to parry a lot, you can use the parry stuff. You need, for some reason, need resistance to paralysis or poison or any of that stuff, you can use it. You need more MP recovery rate for more attacks, you can use that. Whatever you need to use should be here. So just recognize what your build is, what you're trying to do, what kind of damage you're trying to output, what kind of support class that you're trying to use, whether you're trying to continuously buff, so you always need MP, or if you're doing specific kinds of damage, or if you're fighting a boss that does a specific kind of damage that you need resistance to. It's all here. It's all here. So take a moment to go through all these. I'm not going to go through these myself because they're self-explanatory. But you would just go through these and you would just pick the ones that you want, right? And then, so you would do that for your weapon, and then you would do that for your armor. You would do it for each piece of armor that you're using. As you can see, this one's locked, but this one's locked for a different reason. It's not necessarily because of the equipment effects. But let's see. So Rogue's Jacket, faster guard break recovery, but that requires tier 3 of Ultima Affinity. So let me see. So I would need to have however much percent, whether that's 300 or 400 or whatever the prerequisite amount of a percentage that I would need for this to be used. That's what that is. But then I also have strike break damage dealt on it, and I have refill break gauge on attack. So that way it works in conjunction with what my weapon does, which makes it to where I get more recovery from using a soul shield. Using the soul shield uses the break gauge. So with this, I can use the soul shield, use however much that uses, and then continue to attack and refill my break gauge on the attack by an extra 5.7% for this piece of equipment. All this stuff stacks. You know, if you have all that on your helmet, and you have all that on your gauntlets and on your pants and on your shoes and all that stuff, like, it all stacks, right? So you just want to pick the armor that you want. You want to definitely get it up to 500, which we'll get into here next. And you want to realize what it is that you're doing. Okay, I'm a melee class. So what's that mean? That means I want to hit hard. Well, what kind of damage does my weapon do? Does it do strike damage? Does it do slash damage? Does it do pierce damage? I want to do more of that kind of damage with the weapon that does that kind of damage. You know, you want to optimize it to do as much of what it's supposed to do as possible. Okay? So after you figured all your special effects out, then you go and you upgrade them. You upgrade them to the max. Now, the easiest way that I've found personally to be able to upgrade these and to get the materials to be able to upgrade these is just to scrap junk weapons. You're not going to use every weapon in the game. You know, I pretty much stick to axes and staves because that's what my build requires. So I don't need twin blades. I don't need spears. I don't need guns. I don't need any of these things. I have them, but I have them for specific reasons. And we'll get into that later as well. But you know, focus on one or two specific kinds of weapons and go with that. Everything else is junk. It literally is. It's junk. So you can scrap it and you can salvage the materials that you get from it. And that's how you get a bunch to where you never have to worry about never having enough materials to max out the specific equipment effect. Because that's really what you want. On the flip side of that, you also want to make sure that you get your equipment level up to 500. 500 is the max level in this game. It does not go any higher. Now, I have not gotten to different future yet, but I am pretty sure that it doesn't go above 500. If it does, fine. then you go up to whatever the max is. But whatever the max level of equipment is in the game, that's just where you want it at. For me right now, it's 500. If it goes past 500, then I'm gonna get it up to whatever is past 500, 600, whatever, you know. So that's definitely what you want to do. But to do that, you need anima crystals, right? So now we really start to get, if it didn't sink in for you already, now we really start to get into why there's so much and why it takes so much to make one decent build. Okay, you need anima crystals. Well, what's the best way to get anima crystals? Well, you would back out here and you would pick you would pick, let's say, this one, and you would go to your mission level. And it's different for me. These values are lower for me now because I've already beaten this mission. But the first time reward that you get for anima crystals that you get for these missions are astronomical, right? Now, and so these are the missions that you're going to want to do, and you're going to want to complete them at 500. The first time rewards are always going to be the most, and then there might be others that you can grind out where you can get a steady supply of them. But you're definitely going to want to try to get your first time rewards, right? So, with that being said, after you have gone and you have done that, and in the meantime, while you're sitting here trying to do this, you may go into it the first time and not beat it, right? I mean, you might just get your ass kicked. The enemies are super strong on 500, and if you're running in there with level 300, 350, 400, 200, like whatever it is that you're at, like if you're going in with that, then yeah, they're gonna beat your ass. So at that point, all you really want to do is to either A, go in there and try to kill a set few enemies that you know that you can kill and get the items that they drop, whatever the weapons or armor it is that they drop, or you can go on extra mode with 400% affinity and night, and you'll just be an unkillable machine. And you can just kill everything. You can just, enemy rush and kill my buddy calls it glory souls, right? It's just like kill everything, basically. You just go in there, you kill everything, you snag all that loot up, and then if you're still not able to go in and beat the boss, then that's fine. You at least got some gear that was good enough to where you're not going to be at 350 anymore. You're not going to be at 400 anymore. You know, I think the lowest an item drop can be at 500 is like 494, maybe 493, 492, maybe like somewhere around there. But I think the lowest might be like 494, 495, something like that. So you just get something that has that level and go back into it. It's a completely different scenario. Whole different fight. If you know what you're doing, it's easier because now you know you can telegraph enemies, you know when to use the soul shields, you know when to dodge, etc., right? So that's like the second part of that. But anyways, after you've gone and you've gotten that specific equipment, then you come back into the smithy. You go and you upgrade the weapon level, and I would really recommend just doing it like this so that way when you do go to upgrade the thing, let's take this one, it's 496. It's only going to take you 24 anima crystals, which is nothing, you know, as opposed to having something like this. And let's just go all the way up here, right? Like, look how much that takes. It takes almost 1,400 anima crystals plus some shards to get that to where it is. And if you saw on the left side while I was building that up, it didn't increase very much. You know? I mean, look at that. It barely increased a percent. Barely. And you start to see, just like in Dark Souls, I will say that at least, just like in Dark Souls, you start to see these diminishing returns. Now, this 0.1, 0.2% shit, it definitely matters. You know, it can matter down the line, but you know, that's the whole point of going to get that equipment anyways. You know, you don't want to try to build on something that's such a low level. Not necessarily 20. I mean, this is a DLC thing, so I'm not necessarily talking about this weapon, you know, but whatever weapons that you have, as you can see, I don't really have anything under 400. I mean, this one is 402, but this has specific stuff on it that I want. I still have to build it up, but even at 402, it can take it can take a little bit. 588, that's a decent little amount, but it's not insurmountable enough to where you have to constantly like grind to get just a boatload of animal crystals, right? So temper your expectations. Make sure that you're not, and if you have to do it in phases from like 300 to 400, 400 to 500, or even 300 to 350, 350 to 400, however you have to do it, just do it in a way that you can consistently grind out animal crystals and reap the rewards, however small they may seem, from upgrading your equipment, right? Okay, so, and you're going to want to do this with your weapons, and your armor, and maybe these as well, if they have the right stuff. Accessories by themselves are just, I mean, you're always going to get something different with them because they drop randomly. You're always going to be at the mercy of the RNG of this game when it comes to these specifically. I mean, it's really for anything, but for these specifically. So these are very situational, and it really just depends on what you're doing. If you're trying to really destroy this dragon zombie and he's beating your ass, well, you're going to want this and you're going to want to make sure that your equipment has the right amount of Ultima affinity so that you can take 62.1% less damage from him. That's a big number. You're going to want to make sure that your evocation affinity is at least tier 2 so you can get almost 25% more out of your potions. It's very utility based, but it matters. It still matters. Not as much as these two. Weapons and armor are going to be, the most important, because there's already 5 slots that, 4 or 5 slots that you're gonna have to fill depending on what kind of armor you've got on, and if those are dual, and if, like, for instance, like this is a dual slotted piece of armor, it takes up the head and it takes up the torso, right? But you get a bigger reward out of it. You get 2 affinities plus a crazy exponential growth in the job affinity percentage, right? Which brings me into changing affinities. Now, eventually, you're going to want to upgrade your job affinity. So let's say I wanted to upgrade this Abyss Knight affinity, right? I would need the specific crest of the job. In this case, it would be Dark Knight. And from what I have found, weapons and armor go up a different amount depending on what it is, right? So let's see, for this one, it goes up 80. It can go up 80%, which means that if you're going to build, you're going to want to build this to the max, but you're going to want to make sure that what it starts at is at least, I want to say at least 320, at least, if it can go that high. I don't remember exactly. Let's see, let's go to our system settings, and then let's go to auto dismantle. Okay, let's see, equipment level 494, job affinity excluding, yeah, so this, okay, it goes up to 300, because this is saying that it's going to automatically scrap anything that's 299 or lower, so it goes up to 300, right? So what that means is that when you go here and you go to try to upgrade your affinity for this, it's already at 200. The max you can upgrade it is another 80%. So we're going to assume that you're using this specific weapon with the Abyss Knight. Okay. Let's see, actually, let's just make sure before we get too far ahead of ourselves. If Abyss Knight can even use, let's see, what weapons can it use? Okay, so the Dark Knight, I guess you could say, the Dark Knight cannot even use twin blades as a weapon. So, because it can't use it as a weapon, then that means that this affinity on this weapon is going to be used in a different way, right? It's going to be used in a different way. This is meant to supplement something. The only reason you would have this on this weapon is because whatever job that you're using for your build has a need for the Dark Knight's affinity. Okay? So, if you don't need this affinity, then you need to change it. Well, if you need to change it, then you go to fuse. Now, fuse is not super complicated, but it can get to be a little bit much. And I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place here, but this part is probably the most important part. Fuse allows you to put the exact affinity or type of affinity on a weapon or a piece of armor that you want. Okay? And this is how it works. What we're going to do is we're going to sort it by job affinity. The highest job affinity we have out of all the weapons that we own currently right now is 267. But it's 267 for both High Summoner and Trickster. Okay? So let's select this. Now, we have to select a weapon that we want to replace one of those affinities on. Okay? So let's say we wanted to replace it with Master, for instance, which is Monk, right? So what we would do is we would pick it and then we would go over here. These can be carried over. And you, depending on how many slots. So you have 3 slots, so 3 of them can be carried over. So after that, let's see, we'll put this back on and it costs. Now, these also, because you have 3, can be carried over. So we'll just carry these over as we need to carry them over. Now the ones in black are the ones that are on the dual affinity weapon. That's what the black ones are. That's what you are carrying over. The ones in the red are the ones that were on the Soul Eater when we first picked it. So you can carry those over as well. So you just have to mix and match. And mind you, when you go, let's say before you even did this, you went and changed the equipment effects on this weapon. Once you've changed those equipment effects, those as well can be transferred from this weapon onto the next weapon, because this weapon is going to get eaten up. Now you're going to select the piece of equipment whose job affinity is going to be carried over. Because there's 2 slots, you've got to pick 2. So we'll do High Summoner and then we'll do Master. Now, when you do it to Master, you notice that the number is blue. The number is blue because the level of affinity that the dual affinity weapon started out with is higher than Soul Eater's, than Master was for Soul Eater. So, when you're doing this, you want to make sure that if you're going to transfer an affinity over, it needs to be lower than the weapon, as the weapon whose affinity is being carried over. That affinity number needs to be lower so that you reap the rewards of the dual affinities. It's percentage, like that's what you need. So you'll do that. Now I don't have enough materials because I don't have enough Monk Crest, but you'll need materials to do this. All the shit in blue, that's just scrapping. But rat tails, you can either earn through missions or you can buy using Dragon's Treasure. And Monk Crest, from what I understand, is that you have to be using Monk. And I guess you have to get kills and level ups, specifically job levels for Monk as well. That's like the easiest way I know to get crests for any specific class. Use the class and get job level ups with the class, right? And so that's just one weapon. Now you're going to want to do that for all these. Whether it's 4 or 5, you're going to want to do that for all of these. And by the time you're done, you will have a build that works for you. Everything is personally selected, and it fits exactly what it is that you want to do. Like I said, don't forget this dismantle. When you have junk, dismantle it, because you don't need it and it's taking up space. You can't sell it, so you might as well dismantle it and get something out of it, right? So then eventually you'll come back and you'll go to your battle settings. And what you'll do after that is, this is not entirely complete, but it's got basically stuff on it that I want, right? What you'll do is you'll hit R2 and you'll view your special effects. This is a list of everything that this job, you can switch jobs with triangle. So for number 1, which is Raider, this is everything that you get a bonus in, from your HP to your attributes to strike damage to status ailment resistance to soul shield recovery, everything. And you can see that the notable ones that I have here are, I have an extra 40% elemental vulnerability resistance. I have an extra 95.9 MP recovery from using a soul shield. So I almost double what I would normally get from using a soul shield in MP. I would get that back almost double, right? And then you have all of your level 400s, the affinity bonuses that you get for that. So Knight's Pride, Invincible, Berserk Mastery, all that. Berserker Job Affinity, I think I have that built up, right? I have that built up. So what that means is that I went into the job levels. I went to my job trees and I chose Berserker and I hit R3 and I used my affinity, my master points, to bump my affinity up to 400, 405 to be exact. So now while I'm using Berserker, I'm always gonna have the maximum amount of affinity, and I don't have to allocate equipment that has Berserker affinity on it. I just have it. But this only works if you are currently using the job. You can't have 400 in Sage and then think that you're gonna have 400 in Sage when you use Berserker. That's not how it works. Now, when you switch to Sage, you'll have 400, but not while you're using Berserker. It is exclusive to the job that you're using. And it only goes up this high the further you level the job. That's why you have to go and get, what are those things called? Let's see if we can find it in here. I can't remember. It's right here though. It's right here in this area. It increases the max level of jobs, so they'll go from 30 to, what did it go up to? I think it went from 30 to like 80 to like 99 to like 135 to like 150 to like 175, 200, etc., up to 230. And I don't know if it goes past 230, but you'll need those for that. And the further that you increase the threshold that it can be leveled up, the more master points you get, and the further you can increase the threshold on things like your job affinity or your strength or your HP or your drop rate or any of that kind of stuff, right? Like, because Berserker's at 200 is the only reason that this is allowed to be this high. And to be fair, let's assume I took this out of this, and that's the max. It can only go up to 30. Now, I've heard talk around the way that there are benefits to going past 400. There are benefits to getting up to 600 and even to 800. And when you're talking about stuff like that, that's what it really means to hyper optimize in this game. And I don't know how far down that rabbit hole you can really go, but I know just from the math that I've done personally, if it all checks out, it looks like you can have anywhere from 10 to maybe 12 400% affinities on any given job on like one part of the class, right? So like for Raider, for instance, I only have 4 400s right now, but I could have upwards of 1100, or not 1100. I could have upwards of 10 or 11 400% affinities if I had doubles on this, 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 and then increased the job affinity for Berserker through the master points. So the optimization that goes into, you know, and the min-maxing that can really go into this is fucking insane. Like it is mentally exhausting thinking of how far down the rabbit hole you could go with this, right? But yeah, that is pretty much it. To recap, you're gonna want to do this before you do this. To do this, you're gonna want to do this first. And you're definitely gonna want to do this as early as possible. But this will only go up as high as your equipment level can go. So you definitely want to do level 500 missions so that you have access to level 500. But again, if you have to take it in stacks or piece by piece, then that's fine. But eventually, you're going to want to get to the max level. That it makes no sense to be anything less than 500 at this point in the game. If you're doing rifts and you're going into different future, or you're doing different future, like you want to be at max level. It just doesn't make any sense to not be, right? And you're gonna have a hell of a time not being max level, you know. But being max level is not in and of itself enough to compete. You have to have the right job affinities. You have to have the right equipment effects on your weapon, tailored towards your playstyle. You're gonna want to continue to grind and fuse the weapons together so that they have the affinity and the equipment effects on them that you want. Everything has to be tailor-made for you, and they give you all the options to do that. But that's where this is the end game. You know, there's no sugarcoating it. There's no bullshit in it. This is the end game, and all of this shit matters if you want to compete. Now, maybe you don't need to super hyper optimize, like how I said before. You don't need 4 pieces of armor that have dual affinities on them and that are at least 400. And then whatever specific job that you're using, like Berserker or Monk, be at 400 through their master points. Like maybe you don't necessarily need that. Maybe that's overkill. But you do need at least 4 or 5 affinities that are at 400 that are synchronized with each other and flow with each other well enough so that you don't get one shot all the goddamn time. That's definitely a truth of this game, and the quicker that you come to realize it, the better off that you'll be. With that said, I don't think that there's much else that I can really say. I tried to keep it I tried to keep it a little less than what the last ones were, and it looks like I did that better, I guess. But still, there's just so much to talk about, and that's what me and my buddies have always been getting into. Is just like, it's so deep, and it didn't need to be so deep for this to be just a spin-off game. It didn't need to be this deep, but it is. And because it is, if you like making builds and you like min-maxing the shit out of stuff, you know, which is my forte, and it's something that I won't say my forte, but it's something that I love to do. I love min-maxing. I love making builds. I love the ability and the freedom to be creative with what it is that you want to do and to have options. You know, I love class-based stuff. I really do. So this game is like a match made in heaven for me. But this is the reality of the end game. If all you wanted to do was beat the story and move on to something else, I beg you to just do that. Because if you continue any further, this is what you'll have to end up doing eventually. This is what you'll have to do. So, with that being said, I hope that this was informative. This was part 3. I'm not sure if there's anything else I really need to talk about in terms of like build making and optimization and everything. If I figure it out, then I will definitely upload it and make sure that it's that knowledge has been brought forth to you guys. But yeah, this is nuts, and I don't even want to get into Trials of the Dragon King and all this shit, because this is just masochistic. But yeah, this is the game. This is the game. So I hope you enjoyed. Once again, And if I find anything else that needs to be explained and brought forth towards your attention, then I will do that. Until next time, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you later. Goodbye.